Hi everybody, my name is Catherine and I am the new historian at the Pickens County Library System. Today we are here at the Pickens Presbyterian Church in a very cool cemetery to show you how to do a gravestone rubbing. So to do a gravestone rubbing, you really just need three things. The first is paper. You can use butcher paper or tracing paper. I am using a copper paper from gravestonerubbingsupplies.com. The key here is that you want it thin enough to be able to get the inscription onto the paper, but thick enough that you don't rip the paper and get anything on the stone. And you want to make sure that it is big enough to cover the entirety of the stone. Again, you don't want to get anything on the stone. And next, of course, you're going to need wax. I am using a cake of wax from gravestonerubbingsupplies.com, but you can use any large crayon. If you want it to be big, a carpenter's crayon, for example, would be a good choice. The key is you want it to be able to hold up to transfer the color well, and a high melting point is ideal, especially on hot days. And then obviously you need something to hold the paper in place, so masking tape is what you need to use. Anything like Scotch tape or duct tape will leave residue on the stone, and we do not want to damage the stone. And then of course, the next step is to choose your stone. So a few guidelines when choosing your stone. You want to make sure first that it is stable. There's no cracks or damage to the stone. There's no risk of it crumbling when you put a little bit of pressure on it. A good candidate for a rubbing would be a stone that you have trouble making out the inscription of just looking at it. So this one, you can see that the inscription has been worn away, so it's difficult to read, which means that a rubbing will be very helpful so that you'll be able to make out the inscription more clear. Sometimes you'll see lichen growing on the stones. You don't want to clean that off with anything but a soft bristle brush, but only clean that off if it's necessary. Again, we don't want to scrape or scratch the stone. Any heavy-duty cleaning, just don't touch it. You're going to want to trust the professionals when it comes to that, because cleaning agents can damage stones. And again, we do not want to damage the stones. We want to leave the cemetery better than when we found it. So our first step is going to be to cover the entirety of the stone with the paper. I've chosen a smaller stone, so it's going to be a bit more of a hassle. It's for me struggling. You're going to want to make sure that there are no wrinkles in the paper. Get it as smooth as possible. Fold it over the top. Okay, once you've got your paper secured, you will be ready to begin your rubbing. So you're going to want to use even pressure throughout. You can always darken it afterwards and go in one direction. So I'm going to go this way. And you can see that since those letters are really worn in, it's a little difficult to read still, even with the even pressure. So we're going to go over and darken this after we get the basic outline. Okay, so you can always go over it a little bit darker, but now we can make out the inscription. And as soon as you've got it as dark as you want, you can make it out. You can make sure you get all the tape off the stone. And you've got your rubbing. And a lot of times these are used for genealogical purposes or local history research, but I think they also make some cool art. Pardon the wind. Hey, if you're interested in learning more about gravestone rubbings, gravestones, and the graveyards of South Carolina, we are hosting a program at the Hampton Memorial Library on July 22nd called Stories in Stone. It's at 6:30 p.m., so I hope to see you there.